before we get into the actual fights and stuff, we should talk about, I guess, what happened on. Well, we're recording this on the 14th, so it happened yesterday. So you guys will be hearing it tonight. But obviously, Anthony Rumble Johnson died. That's a rough ending to a fun weekend in the UFC. But I feel like we'd be like remiss not to like say anything. And obviously, I could put the thing in the beginning of the video. It sucks. I mean, 38 years old, one of the most feared knockout artists of all time, and like from everything that I've heard over the years, and especially now, even better person than he was a fighter. So sucks that the MMA community had to lose a guy like that. I mean, I know he was ill because I remember like when it was crazy too. We were actually talking about it on Saturday during the fights because Sean asked about him, but we were talking about how he was ill. I remember I think it was when he was going to fight Yoel. He had to pull out because of whatever was wrong. And I don't know, like it sucks. Like I'm sure more details will come out as like the days go on, but 38 years old, no matter what, it's just a rough way to lose somebody, especially someone like that who's been like prevalent in the UFC and in Bellator like very recently. So rest in peace to him. Our thoughts are with obviously his family and friends and all of his loved ones. But obviously we got some action to talk about at UFC 281. Crazy things have happened on that card. I honestly don't even. I guess we could always just start from the top like we always do, but Alex Pereira, he defeats Israel Adesanya by TKO in the 5th round, and we can get into the stoppage and all that, but honestly, first I just want to talk about like the fight and everything that went into it. I mean, obviously, we didn't get to talk about it the week before because we were on vacation down in the bayou, and that was very fun. Treated us nicely, but we're back obviously, and we're getting into the action. And my thoughts coming into this were, even though Pereira had the 2 wins in kickboxing, it kind of it meant a lot, but it doesn't mean everything. Just because in those matches, the first one was honestly. I never say this. It was honestly a robbery. I thought Izzy won the first kickboxing match pretty much I don't know how they scored that for Alex, to be honest. But the second one honestly went a lot like the fight in MMA went. Izzy rocked him kind of early and, was winning the fight, cruising. And then in the last round, Alex Pereira knows he's got to finish him. And, dude, that guy's power is the truth. Whether you think the stoppage was questionable or not, that dude definitely had Izzy hurt. And to think that he's the champ now, beat Israel Adesanya of all people too, in his 8th pro fight in MMA. He had the kickboxing experience, and that's obviously matters, but MMA experience, slim to none. And he defeats Israel Adesanya. I know you love Izzy, so what are your thoughts on this fight and everything that went into it?
Well, I mean, I think this is something with every big, title fight on a pay-per-view, where both fighters will step on the scale at the weigh-ins and whatnot, and then you'll get all the, you'll get all the reception and whatnot from it, oh, he looks so, drained, and, then that's when all the speculation starts about, who's really gonna win the fight or not. I was seeing it for both, at this point, it's obviously they're gonna be tired. Those weight cuts are insane. What they have to do, especially for these title fights and whatnot. You're not you. That's that could be your one shot. So
you got he went up to 211 before that night. Which
yeah,
is nuts.
And he's Pereira's just huge, just huge anyways for the division in that sense. So from there it's just I guess it's really not all that worth just speculating all that much, just going into it, because at the end of the day, they're still all the work has been put in and whatnot. All that's left to do is just go in and perform. And so, Pereira just man, that dude is just he's a killer. And from the start, it looked all right, Izzy's clearly gonna have his work cut out for him, but like, if he can he can work his takedown defense and maybe, catch Pieta off guard with a few, maybe some scrambles or whatnot of his own on the ground, maybe rack up some points there, like. All right,
there was some grappling in this fight that I enjoyed. Like when Pereira got him in that heel hook at the end of the one round, that was kind of nuts.
Izzy's the one who's been, to multiple championship rounds. Like, he's like, he's the one who's really pretty much already established. But now, like, you've got the guy on the other side who's knocked him out before, like one of the only guys to beat him. So it's like, man, like all that narrative, all the speculation coming in, it's like, wow, like all that's left to do is fight. And man, honestly, I guess you could say that the fight did exceed expectations. Like, honestly, I didn't think it would be
up to the hype, man.
I didn't think it would be as close as it actually ended up being. And then, obviously, like, we'll talk about how the finish went and all that, which was pretty unfortunate. But yeah, I'm an Israel Adesanya fan, but I'm not gonna sit here and rest on my laurels or whatever and be like, oh, like, is wrong what happened, how that stoppage ended. Like, I am with the side that, like, especially in the last round of a championship fight, like, you've got one of the longest reigning champions in the division, an undefeated streak within the division on the line. I think you just gotta let the Warrior go out on his shield. You gotta let him go to the ground, I think. But
he said, "Bring back Steve Mazzagatti." I thought that was a great comment by him. I love that. He's a funny dude. Like, he took this one on the chin. So no.
Yeah, no, that is hilarious because you don't actually want to bring back Steve Mazzagatti, but.
I'll never forget what Dana White said about him. Like, it was I wasn't a fan yet, but I've seen this like on YouTube a million times.
Yeah.
When he was talking about him, and he said, he goes, "I'm sure he's a nice guy. He might even save children from burning orphanages all over the weekend." And like then comes to ref fights, but he's a horrible ref, and he should never be like allowed to ref a fight. He goes, he shouldn't even be allowed to watch fights, let alone fucking ref them.
Oh yeah, dude, he's probably watching that for like, I wouldn't let that. Even if Izzy went to the ground, like, nope, you gotta knock him out completely.
Or you could be like Mario Yamasaki, I want to let him go out like a warrior. Like, let him go out like a warrior.
You don't want to bring those guys back, but also like, I guess like it varies. Like, obviously between 5-round fights and 3-round fights, like I get it. Like the ref's job in there is at the end of the day you gotta protect the two guys in there, and it's tough. It really is.
It sucks for us, but like the thing that people need to realize about the refs is that like their job isn't to like allow the guy to go out on his shield or hopefully get to a decision. It's to protect him no matter whether there's 1 second on the clock or 4 minutes on the clock. Like, if he's done, he's done. And, like, you can have the argument that he might not have been, but, I've definitely seen worse stoppages. Like, that wasn't a great one to me, but it wasn't, like, a horrible, egregious one. Like, in the moment, it was kind of, like, shittier because, I mean, I still kind of feel that what looked bad was when Izzy hit Mark Goddard, kind of like when he was swaying. But personally, I kind of thought that he was just trying to keep his head down and moving, and that's why he didn't like have his hand. He's trying to like get him off more rather than cover up. But I get like how that could look bad. And he was definitely really hurt. That's not even what I'm saying. Because round one, it seemed like Pereira's pressure was getting to him right away, but then Izzy almost sent him to the fucking shadow realm at the end of the round. But he got saved by the bell.
Talk a little more about the fight itself.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I haven't seen Adesanya like get a lot of shit for like just like he just like. Not your typical, but like people are just getting on him like, oh, he fights a boring fight, like just point fighting. He's gonna stick and move, he's elusive.
Even he said it. He goes, I want to fuck this guy up, or I might just jab and leg kick him. I love the fact that he's just so real about it.
That's kind of self-awareness is fucking like it's good,
yeah,
but
he hears it. He hears it. It may not affect him, but he hears it.
Like, it don't like Pieta. Like it's like. I think you should go without saying, like, Pereira, like, brought the absolute best out of him, and Pereira still beat him, which looks like, oh my god, like this dude really just terrorizes Adesanya like everywhere.
He's the ultimate hater. Like he just loves he followed him from another sport just so he could prove that he could beat his ass again. Remember we were saying after the fight,
we were expecting like he's just gonna vacate the belt right here. Like all I wanted to do was take it from Adesanya.
Just wanted to show you guys I'm still better than this dude. That really is ultimate hater status. I love it.
But like, is he striking? Like, man, like when he like that just goes to show you like really why he was a champion for as long as he was, because just of how well rounded, how technical it is. Like it's just for the middleweight division as well. Like it's something to behold. And he was really worried to strike. Like obviously you saw at the end of the first round, like, you know, you could argue Pieta was saved by the bell. He was definitely like stunned and wobbly, but you know, we'll just
I would have liked to see what would happen if Izzy would have landed a couple more clean shots.
We'll just never know. And then from there, like just Izzy's confidence just kept going and going and going up, and just more like just him realizing like, okay, like I'm the champion, he's the challenger, he's coming for my belt. Nothing that happened in the past matters. Like. And so he's just really starting, like, it's like, all right, like, now, actually, it was more in the sense, like, all right, you knocked me out, like, now I gotta knock you out. Like, I'm not just trying to
It's funny, too, because I kind of got that sense when I was watching it. Like, Izzy still had, like, his technical prowess, like he always does, which just shows how good he is with his footwork and his head movement. Like, he looked really incredible throughout the fight, even though he lost. But like you could see on some of those counter shots, they had a little more zip and more looping likeness to them because you could tell he wanted to finish them. It wasn't one of these fights that he wanted to just skate by and get a decision. You could tell on those counters he was really trying to ring his bell, and he did obviously in round one. And honestly, he did pretty good in the clinch too in that fight with the stronger guy in there, Pereira. I was pretty impressed by that. I mean, on the ground, Pereira obviously got him in that one leg lock that was kind of crazy. But this fight had everything. Like I figured there was going to be some grappling in it, but I didn't think the scrambles were going to be as fun as they were. And then obviously round 5 came, and you know, like I said, he rocked him pretty bad and he hit him with that left hook too, which was like the big one. And he was definitely, you know, a little bit hurt there. But I would have liked to see it go just a tiny bit further, like maybe one more big one. Yeah. I mean, that sounds horrible to say out loud, like thinking it, like it just sounds weird. But it's like it's a high stakes fight. Yeah. Like it's the last,
it's the last round too, you know. So like, and then you got a guy who literally hasn't lost within the division yet. So you know,
I don't. It's tough. It was a bad, and you know, I've watched like the stoppage back and stuff. It's kind of tough too because
it's hard. I don't think. People don't really like to put themselves in, like, other people's shoes and, like, you know, really, like, just take a second to, like, think about, like, how, like, you know, high, like, leverage, I guess, like, the moment really is. And, like, you know, at the end of the day, like, you know, you're not, like, the fans' interest isn't, like, obviously, like, you let the fight go. Like, you know, these guys at the end of the day, like, this is what they sign up for.
I mean, I've heard Big John talk about it, like, on his podcast, and he talks about kind of, like, how you don't put the stakes involved, but you think of who's in there and their past and their history, and, you know, has this guy been knocked out a bunch of times, or has he proven that he can get better? And I think Adesanya's earned the right to
that plays into what I was just saying about, like, you know, you've got one of the longest title reigns ever, undefeated in the division, like, So like it's in that sense, like you'd rather like you don't want to see him like, you know, not just like, you know, some you want to see him like Pieta like clearly had him, but like still like you never know. But it's in the books now. We have a new middleweight champion. It's just wild to say like after all this time.
I think it's legit. Like, I don't have a problem with the stoppage. It's just because like like you were saying, like reffing's a hard job, and you're gonna deal with things like this, and you can't like you said, people don't want to put themselves in other people's shoes. They think it's like so easy to just stand there and watch the fight, but there's so much on the line. Like these refs are worried about the fighter's health. Like this is above winning and losing sometimes. And I guess Mark Goddard really thought that Adesanya was done there, and you know he definitely looked like he was close. So I can't hate on it, and it was a very legit.
With all that being said, like you know, when's the rematch? Because I'm here for it as soon as possible.
Yeah,
honestly.
I think you can give him a rematch right off the bat. I don't like people were talking about Whitaker, and like I get it, but Adesanya's like earned the rematch. Like he hasn't lost in this weight class until now. So and this rivalry with him and Poatan is pretty cool. Like I'm enjoying it. Like the fact that it's been in kickboxing and now we have it in MMA, and people really want to see this rematch, like including me and you, obviously. Yeah. When is it gonna happen? That's really the question.
So why? I just remember watching this clip of Pereira just him talking about not that he's like obviously saw the fight, like the result going how it went, but like just more like he knew he was gonna like just get like back to like he sees Adesanya as the champion beating everybody, and it's I'm watching him, like he doesn't realize that I'm still lurking around, I'm still the guy that beat you, like it's a different sport. But
before the fight he said how if he's gonna beat him so bad that he goes, does he get a rematch if he wins, and he's like, well, I mean, I think he deserves one, but I don't think he's ever going to want to fight again after this. And I was like, that's gold. And then the walkouts were sick, too. Like, remember he had, like, that creepy, like, ambience, like, in music, and he's just walking forward in his fight stance already.
He always has the best walkouts.
Well, I'm talking about Pereira, not Adesanya.
Oh, yeah.
Izzy's walkout was cool, too. He had, like, the Saw theme. That was kind of sick. But
yeah.
Pereira's was creepy, man. He was walking forward literally just like this. And like, just advancing already in the he's not even in the cage yet, and he was already coming forward. I was like, this dude is a scary individual.
No, yeah, like I think it should like he just beat Adesanya. Like I think it should be clear that like he's capable of beating anybody in the division now.
Yeah, when you do that to a guy who's 23-1, who hasn't lost in the weight class, and nobody's even really seemed to be able to get close to him besides Gastelum like years ago. I think that says a lot, and especially the fact that he's so inexperienced in MMA and he's already beaten somebody of that caliber. Like, I don't want to hear any slander on Alex Pereira. Like, I don't know what excuse you could possibly make. Like, this dude's for real. Like, and I hope if he does beat Adesanya again, we get to see him fight some of these other guys like Whitaker, Cannonier, and the other people at the top of the division. So it was fun. That was a chess match of all chess matches, like on the feet. I loved watching that. Like technical striking at its finest, like for real. So we do have a new champion though, like you said, and I think it's a matter of when, not if, that rematch happens. But great main event. It's very rare that like fights really live up to the hype like that, and that one definitely did. And I think the next fight, the co-main event, I think it lived up to the hype in the sense that we all kind of had a feeling that Zhang Weili had the potential to just ragdoll Carla Esparza and just beat her everywhere. And like Carla is very good, but she's very one-dimensional. And like I thought the people hating on Carla before the fight were kind of like wrong about it, saying that she had no chance, because that's not true. Like she's so good at wrestling. Like people do not understand how good she actually is on the ground. But the thing is, like, it kind of reminded me of the Islam fight in the sense that like Zhang Weili is just so much stronger, so much more athletic, and I just didn't feel good about it coming in for Carla. And obviously this fight was not Carla's fight. Zhang was just beating the crap out of her everywhere, and then that crucifix, man, to end it, like, ugh, that's filthy. I mean, I don't know, what did you kind of think coming into this fight? Because I don't think we really talked about it, me and you, that much.
Well, I was just waiting for the first takedown, honestly. Like, we was waiting for her to go to the ground, because I wasn't expecting much on the feet. Not really a whole lot from Zhang either. Like, I figured, Zhang was going to, she's going to work Carla, a few jabs, she's going to land more and just win that way if it's going to stay on the feet. Because, Carla, like, we saw it too. Like, Carla wasn't, like, there was nothing really happening from Carla on the feet. And then she gets taken down with Zhang on her back. And then from there, it's just like something just clicked for Carla Esparza. And now it's like, okay, now we really got to fight now. But, oh my goodness, just Zhang, yeah, dude, it's ridiculous, like, how quick she is, like, athletic, you said, and just skilled, just everywhere. And it's like, this time around, like, she really, like, man, it's like, it might be like a long time before, like, somebody beats her again for that title.
They were talking about Rose, and, like, I don't understand how you give her a title shot off of, like, one of the most boring losses. It
doesn't make any sense at all.
And to be fair, off that loss, I don't think Rose beats Zhang.
Because Zhang just beat the girl that Rose lost to. So like, why would Rose?
Twice, too,
yeah,
by the way.
it literally makes no sense.
I mean, yeah, Rose has beaten Zhang twice, but it's like, does she really deserve another title shot after throwing like a combined like 5 strikes in that whole loss? Like,
No.
I don't know. I think you need a fight in between there, and maybe you know, obviously Amanda Lemos won last week when we were away, and maybe you could get her versus Rose in like a title eliminator if you want to go that route. But I just don't see.
Yeah, man.
I don't know. I don't like the Rose fight.
Yeah, and that's also part of why, like, man, like, you know, who's next for Zhang? Like, she really, like, this time around, like, we could see like one of the longest reigns ever in the division. I think so, but you know,
she's legit.
Yeah,
like,
that was
good everywhere.
that was really that was super impressive on Saturday.
Yeah, I think this title reign is gonna last a lot longer than her first one.
Yeah, definitely.
Just a hunch.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm sure. Dude, we were making jokes too about Carla afterwards. Remember, talking about how like Joe Rogan was like basically trying to just get her out. Like, all right, great title reign. Pleasure watching your fight. See you later. Just to make sure that she's not gonna get any momentum back to the title shot. It sucks because Carla's like, look, she's just really like it's just she's a competitor out there. Like she's not one of these people who has like that mean streak, or she's not going to talk shit. She's going to go out there, wrestle you, beat you up, and do her job and get the W, and by any means necessary. And I don't think the UFC really likes that a lot because you're not getting exciting fights, you're not getting finishes, and that's messed up. Yeah, like Carla's that good, she deserves to be pushed further, but it's just the way the UFC is. Like people just gotta accept that. Like the hardcore fans, like it's kind of funny to me how mad that they all get, but like you know that it's not going to change, so like why do you it's like my view on it is like you got to be real with it sometimes, and like yeah, I agree, Carla like is a lot better than the UFC treats her, and she should be getting like pushed into title opportunities more often because she's that good, but you got to be real with it. Like you know how the UFC operates. A hardcore fan should know how the UFC operates at this point. So we'll see where Carla goes from here. But yeah, Zhang Weili's title reign might be a long one. But then we got before technically, but after it, talking wise, we had Dustin Poirier versus Michael Chandler. You know, we've been talking about fights living up to the hype. This one really lived up to it. We got the exact war that we needed, and it seemed like Chandler, you know, he used his grappling a bit more effectively than he has in the past, but still, like his meathead self, he just gets drawn into these brawls, and it costs him the fight every single time.
Yeah.
And this is another case of that, and that's kind of why I had Poirier winning coming in. And you know, Chandler looked good, like with his wrestling, man. He was holding him down, he's beating him up, but on the feet.
No,
Poirier's
yeah, like
legit.
he really was beating him up. Like that fight honestly could have ended in the first round, but when you're fighting Dustin Poirier, like you know. It's gonna take a lot more, clearly. Jeez, and then like from there, it was just Poirier's fight, like from the whole way through. Like Chandler was matching and whatnot. Chandler, like you know, you gotta just it's always hats off to Michael Chandler. Anyways, like he's always in there. Like when he's in there, like you know, it's gonna be an absolute slugfest.
He's putting on a show, even if he's not trying to coming in.
Yeah,
I guess what he always says, like you know,
I'm
just
like,
focused on the
I
win.
mean, you look at the names he's fought already. Like he's even like,
Bellator he's fought killers.
He's fighting freaking dudes. So you know, like hats out to him in that sense. But man, like he could be one of those established guys too. It's just still gotta like you know.
He needs to just stay disciplined. That's what it is. Like I feel like an asshole, like being you know the guy on the microphone telling a fighter what he should do, but it's like I feel like even he would say this, like he gets drawn into these brawls and he starts throwing these looping shots, and like this isn't just assumption, it's a fact. Like all you got to do is watch all his fights, and he gets drawn into these brawls, he gets hit a couple times, and then he's the type of person when he takes one, he's got to give you one harder, like right back, and that's what leads to these looping overhands that barely land. They usually land in the first, but as the fight goes on he tends to get slower. And then he goes for the wild takedowns,
and then you
too.
see in the last round, for instance, he starts to get desperate and start doing things like punching to the back of the head, and he was getting away with it too. So
Yeah, he was the fish hooking thing too. He was like, apparently he put his hand in Poirier's mouth, and you can kind of see it. And Poirier was pretty pissed about
exactly.
that.
Yeah, that's just getting desperate because like you poured everything out already. Like you only have so much left to give, and it's like, damn, like what I got, like this guy won't go away.
Chandler's
and that's where
discipline.
Yeah,
that's would just like to say, because he afterwards they're asking about it, and he's talking. Dude, he always just gives like the right answer. Like he talks like any like professional athlete and politician. He's like, you guys know how much I love this game. I would never cheat the integrity of this game. I may have done some things in the fight just on account of like where I was in position. And he's just like, he goes, but you guys know I would never cheat. I'm not a cheater. I play the game fairly. He's so well spoken. I give him so much credit. Even like I said before the fight, like, I got to go in here. I think I've proven myself that I could last in a war. I need to come in here and just use my wrestling and mix up my takedowns and get a W. And then after this fight, he's got 2 pieces of like the gauze up his nose. His eyes are basically closed. He's like, yeah, well, it's another crazy night at the office for Mike Chandler. # see you at the top. But Poirier, man, he looked great. Like Poirier is a guy who really lives in like a brawl, because his boxing is so crisp. Like he's so good at like rolling with punches and ducking under and getting good counters, and he hits hard, man. And you could see it in this fight. And then he obviously submitted him in the end. And this is what I'm talking about with like how Chandler gets too wild in the fight. Because he goes for a takedown that was just crazy. Like he literally lifted Dustin in the air and like threw him backwards. And then obviously gets out scrambled and gets his back taken. Chandler does that sometimes when he's getting... And so does Poirier, to be fair. Because Chandler had his back too. But they both kind of like turn their back a lot when they get up. But on this instance, Poirier's back... rear naked choke defense is a lot better than Chandler's, and in this one it was just kind of crazy and then Poirier after the fight too, I loved how he ended the interview. Who ain't got jiu-jitsu? And then Dustin Poirier, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I'll take from that, man. Who ain't got jiu-jitsu? Good for him. He needed that because the rear naked choke has been Dustin Poirier's Achilles heel in his title fights. Obviously with Khabib and then Oliveira. So it was cool to see him turn the tables on that one on Mike Chandler. And yeah, I mean, he called out, well, he didn't really call him out. He said he wouldn't mind fighting Beneil Dariush, Poirier I'm talking about. And that's cool. Like, I like that. Like, I like that he's recognizing, too, a guy who's been on a crazy run and deserves a big name like Dustin Poirier. And honestly, I hope we see that fight because that's an interesting one. Because on the ground, Beneil is a lot better than him. But on the feet, they're both just the scrappiest boxers with heavy hands, and I can't wait to see what happens if they go at it. And then Chandler obviously called out McGregor. I'll say this, like, we'll go with our ESPN shit, because you know how they do it on First Take and stuff. Which fight would you rather see? Chandler versus McGregor or Poirier versus Beneil Dariush?
and then yeah, it obviously all sways to Chandler and McGregor, and then they get into that whole conversation, and then it's that. Even though that is so much less likely to happen than Dariush and Poirier.
I don't know, to be honest. I think that's a fight that could happen, Chandler versus McGregor, because who's McGregor going to fight? Like, I don't think Poirier is going to fight him again right off the bat. Diaz is gone, so maybe. God, please don't book him against Tony Ferguson.
I don't know, because like, what does a win for either of them like really do?
Well, I mean, what is a... But then you have to think with Chandler, like, that's a guy who the UFC likes, and with a win over McGregor, whether we like it or not, he's back in the title picture again, which is crazy. Like, I don't agree, but that's just how it is. Like, that's like we're talking about being real with how the sport works.
Yeah, you're right.
If he has a win over McGregor, you're automatically being put into the upper echelon again, and especially if he does it in spectacular fashion. And then if Conor wins, Conor's always one fight away from a title shot. That's really how it is with him, and I don't know if you could say he's earned it through his fights, but he's earned it through how he promotes himself and just keeping himself that relevant.
the Makhachev and Volkanovski fight, like, I think it's really gonna clear things up. I think right now, like, lightweight, like, I feel like lightweight is kind of just like, on a little like a pause right now until that fight happens. Because now you have a guy like going for double champ status.
Yeah, exactly. You're skipping every contender because there are contenders at 155, and you're just skipping them for Volk. And we've said this, like, Volk has earned that opportunity at this point. He's cleared out 145. Besides this interim title fight that we can honestly get into now if you want, but UFC 284 is shaping up to be a nice event over there in Perth. Champ versus champ, then the interim title fight for 145. So hopefully. Featherweight has had like such a problem this year at Clarity. I think 2022 has just not been the year for the 145 pounders, and I think 2023 is going to start off pretty strong with this interim title fight. I think we'll finally get some clarity because this is shit luck at the end of the day. We could talk about curses and stuff, but I think it's just shit luck, and we could get more into like the champ versus champ fight like when it happens. But I'm kind of curious to see like what you think of the interim matchup because I still have a problem with it, man. I think it should have been Arnold Allen and not Yair. I don't know how you give Yair.
I think you should start off with that actually because I was like curious too. Like I didn't bet much of an eye to it. Like I do get it, but it also doesn't mean like it's right.
It could also be like an availability thing. Like maybe Arnold Allen just wasn't ready in February and. You just go to the UFC. They just go to the next guy.
Like still, like you just.
It's a weird spot because Yair. Let me look him up real quick. Like Yair kind of had. He always takes like forever off in between fights. That's why I always have like a problem trying to remember which fight went where.
I don't believe Arnold Allen and Yair Rodriguez have fought each other.
No, they definitely have not. All right, so here's like his last. This is Yair. He had the win over Ortega, but that was a weird win because, like, you could argue, like, well, he caused the shoulder injury by, like, putting him in the armbar, but I don't know. I that wasn't, like, a legit... He shook out of it. Like, he might have hurt his shoulder, but he got out of it. So if he would have just been able to... I don't know. It's a weird fight, to be honest. I'm going to just kind of gloss past it. It's a weird one. And then, obviously, he got beat by Max Holloway in that war. And then before that, he had a win over Jeremy Stevens, who's not in the UFC anymore, and it was in 2019. It was over 3 years ago at this point because it was in October. So it's so weird to me that he hasn't really gotten a legit win since Jeremy Stevens in 2019, and he's getting an interim title shot. But I get that there's really not many.
I think that's just. I think this is like part of like just the Volk effect, just because of how just up in the air like featherweight is, like you're kind of just talking about. Yeah. It's just like you said, there's like hardly any clarity right now, especially like now like you have Volkanovski like fighting for another belt, and so it's like. Yeah, it's like, man, like, what's even, it's like, weird. Going on now?
Josh Emmett is the only one, I think, who's earned it off merit. Like, I think you could have given Emmett a title shot, like, just by himself. It just wouldn't have been doing crazy numbers. Like, I think an interim title fight works here because you're going to build, like, a big number one contender. And I think that Josh Emmett has the potential to be, as well as Yair, because this is no gimme for Emmett, even though Yair's circumstances of getting to this fight might be a little bit questionable. The fight's got to happen at the end of the day. And Yair, he's got crazy good striking at this point. He proved that in the Holloway fight, honestly, even though he lost. And then he's got jiu-jitsu. I mean, basically hurting Ortega's arm with an armbar. And Ortega is like a legit Gracie black belt. That's impressive. So Yair has gotten a lot better over the past few years. And Josh Emmett has always been this good, I think. It's just a matter of now he's put together the wins. So I don't hate it, but I wish it would have been
now like Calvin Kattar getting hurt too, so that's just another top name that's like just kind of out of the picture. Like
and he's coming off a couple losses, so it's a tough spot to be. I mean, let's see.
Yeah, featherweight is really like needs those contenders.
Yeah, because Holloway, he's number one, so he's hoping somebody can beat Volk.
Yeah, exactly.
He's in a really shit spot now because he's lost
just like
to him
somebody beat this guy.
Sucks. I mean, the only guys like Ortega's already lost. You know, you got Yair already versus Allen or Emmett. Arnold Allen's number 4.
Korean Zombie.
He's at 6. You got Cater at 7, and Giga's all the way down at 8. So it's a tough spot, man. And then Bryce Mitchell and Evloev were at 9 and 10. That fight.
Like you have guys on the come up, but like then the day they still haven't fought like. You know, the actual, like, the guys that fought Volkanovski.
Yeah, they need to fight top 5 guys. And it seems like injuries and all this crazy shit gets in the way. Like, even Evloev versus Mitchell, which was a fight that me and you were looking really forward to. You know, I think Evloev got hurt, and then that fight doesn't happen. So now where are we? It's just, I don't know, man. I don't,
a really weird spot for featherweight.
I think that the interim title fight will help, though. I think that'll hopefully produce an actual number 1 contender, and then Volk's next fight, win or lose versus Islam. But that fight card is in February in Perth, Australia, and I think we'll probably talk about it a lot more when it gets to it. It's just those fights are huge fights, and I feel like we have to just at least touch on them.
Yeah.
But back to the card, tough night at the office for Frankie Edgar, man. You know, it's a rough way to go out, and Chael Sonnen says it all the time. It's like, no matter who you are, like most of the time you're going to be going out face down, ass up, and embarrassed. You know, in this case, Frankie Edgar just got slept by that flying knee by Chris Gutierrez, and it's time.
Shit,
that's really,
man. Yeah, it really is time. You know, I hope he's it seems like he is able to, like, you know, come to terms with that and, like, cope with it, and, like, you know, as long as he should, like, obviously, like, what a rough, like, just, like, last run to his career, obviously, but
3 straight knockout losses.
He's the stamp he's marked in his time, you know, in the lightweight division, and just all the names he's beaten and whatnot, like, in the golden age of UFC too.
Yeah, I have it on here too. Like, the other thing to note about Frankie Edgar, like, he could have been a bantamweight since the beginning of his career, but there was no bantamweight division that was prevalent at the time, and he went in the UFC at lightweight, massively undersized, ended up getting through the ranks, only losing to Gray Maynard on the way up, and then he fights BJ Penn, UFC 112, and nobody thinks that Frankie's going to be able to win, and he ends up easily just dominating BJ, and then he does it again at UFC 118, and that really cemented his legacy to beat a prime BJ.
Yeah, dude, that lightweight run is truly, like, one of the best runs, like, ever.
Well, yeah, I'm looking, like, now, and, like, even after that, there was the one fight with Gray Maynard, UFC 125, that was a draw. That was a crazy fight. And then they had the war at UFC 136. I actually have the poster of it. You guys will probably be able to see that on this channel at one point or another. But that fight is one of my favorite lightweight title fights ever, Frankie Edgar versus Gray Maynard 3, because, you know, I feel like because some of our followers and stuff, like, they probably are more like newer fans. I feel like we could actually talk about these fights, like, in depth a little bit, because that second fight with Gray Maynard was nuts, because he got knocked down. This is Frankie. Frankie got knocked down, I think, 4 or 5 times in the first round, and I'm pretty sure to this day nobody has ever done that and even survived the fight, let alone came back and, like, almost won it, because that round was like a 10-7, and you guys know how when's the last time we've seen a 10-7 round? And that's, like, what was being put out there for this fight. And then Frankie Edgar comes back after that and wins every single round to end the fight. And then the third fight, you know, after they have the draw, there's no real, like, resolution, which is ironic because UFC 125 was called UFC 125 Resolution. we didn't really get one. And then, you know, UFC 136 comes about, like, 10 months later. And then, same thing, Gray Maynard drops him a few times in the first. Frankie ends up surviving it. Mark Goddard would have stopped both of those fights.
Yeah,
but that's your
easily.
new. Actually, you might have. Who was the ref for those fights? I'm kind of curious. I feel like who is the guy who let those fights go on? Josh Rosenthal. Damn, that's a name I haven't heard in a minute. He does not ref anymore. He actually, I'm pretty sure he retired, and he runs a weed dispensary.
Oh, wow.
Which is interesting. But, yeah, so he reffed that third fight, and he let it go. And Frankie Edgar ended up coming back just like he did in the second fight, and then he knocked him out in the fourth round. Just absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Like and then he lost to Benson.
He's
Henderson,
always
which was a close fight,
he's just always had the underdog edge to him. That's what's like made it so like easy to root for him. Even now, like, you know, as a bantamweight, like
even as a featherweight, because like when he went down, he fought Aldo for the title, and Aldo at the time was legit like 21-1. Yeah, that's what it says. So he's 21-1, and that at that point, like, this is the midst of prime Jose Aldo.
Yeah, dude.
And then even at featherweight, like, before he fought Aldo again, he went on this win streak. He beat Charles Oliveira, BJ Penn, Cub Swanson, Uriah Faber, and Chad Mendez, and he knocked Chad Mendez out in 2.5 minutes in round 1, and then lost to Aldo again. But like, he's just fought all killers, like Jeremy Stevens, Yair Rodriguez, Brian Ortega, Cub again, Max Holloway, Korean Zombie, Pedro Munoz, and then his last 3 losses have all been by knockout: Sandhagen, Vera, and Gutierrez.
Yeah.
But just killers, man, throughout his whole career. Even before the title fight, he was fighting guys like Sean Shirk, and then he fought Gray Maynard was his only loss, like, before the title fight. Tyson Griffin was another one. That was like when he first really burst onto the scene. But just an incredible career, man. Like, people got to recognize just how great Frankie Edgar was.
The ultimate underdog in my book.
Yeah, I saw a post on Instagram that said he's like the Rocky Balboa of MMA, and I'm like, it's a good comparison, honestly, because he's been fighting a lot of guys who were bigger than him, better than him, and he still found a way to beat a lot of them.
Yep.
So respect to Frankie Edgar, man. He's one of the best ever. Hall of Famer for sure, whatever that may mean for your legacy, but that's not the time to talk about it. So we'll just go on to this next fight, Dan Hooker versus Claudio Puelles. And I don't know, like, we could probably start with like a lot of things in this fight, because you either start with how good Hooker was on the feet or how Puelles, like, he has potential, but there's clearly, like, he's got to have some improvement to get there. I don't know, like, what did you think of this fight? Even coming into it, I wasn't really sure, to be honest.
I think he was a little too, like, fixated on trying to get Dan Hooker to the ground and just beating him that way instead of, like, you know, just trying to trade with him. It seemed like, you know, at least out of the first round, he had absolutely no interest in standing with Dan Hooker. And so, like, Dan Hooker, obviously, with, you know, the pedigree that he has in his, you know, his career, all the experience he has and whatnot, like, you know, he's not, like, he knows what, he completely understood what Puelles was trying to do, and he wasn't gonna allow himself to get into his wheelhouse. So, and then
he needed a win too,
Dan. He got he won by a submit. He got him the tap too, which is I don't.
No, he it was a body shot, I think, and they stopped it. I think it was a TKO. Let me look.
Oh yeah. Now I
he was just beating his ass. Yeah, TKO body kick.
Yeah.
Late round 2.
Yeah. That's a huge win for Dan Hooker. He needed that. So.
Good for him. I mean, he's number 10 as of this. Wait, actually, I could be wrong about that. Actually, I think I am. Let me go back and actually figure that out. He is 12th. Sorry, so he'll probably go up though by a little bit, I would think. And yeah, I mean, Dan Hooker's one of those guys who's always getting put on a great fight, and this one was no different. And his striking really looked crisp in this one. Like you said, I thought it shows a lot about his discipline to not try and just go in his wheelhouse and say I could just beat his ass and basically get out of the leg locks, because Puelles has some nasty leg locks, dude. He's a great jiu-jitsu
I mean,
guy.
he got the one in Minari roll in the first round, and then from there, like, that's what I say, like, you know, he got, like, came a little, like, too fixated, like, he just kept going for single legs and whatnot, like, clearly, like,
and
wanted to get back.
Guard. Like, he wouldn't like pull him really into it. He would just kind of go to his back, and like Dan Hooker was clearly not going down there with him, which is a smart move. But I think with, like, some wrestling, Puelles could be good. And, like, I think it honestly gives us, like, a good transition into our next fight, because I was about to, like, talk about him. But I think with some, like, better striking and better, like, actual wrestling, I think he could be, like, as good as how Moicano is, in that division. Because Moicano, he's one of those guys who came up sort of like Puelles in the sense that, like, a lot of people were hyping him up. And Moicano, the thing with him is, like, he's only lost to, like, the best. Like, RDA, Aldo at 145, Fiziev, who's obviously, like, very high up in the ranks right now.
Oh, yeah, he knows that. He knows that, too. We'll get into that. But
yeah, he just seems to have, like, he just gets some tough fights, man. Even this one, like, with Brad Riddell.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't sure coming in because Brad Riddell hits like a fucking train. And it didn't really seem to matter as much in the end because Moicano got his back pretty quick and choked him out. Not too great of a night for City Kickboxing. 2-2, average 500 night at the office.
Yeah.
Feel bad for Eugene having to like go back and forth, but it is what it is. I mean, I'm sure he enjoys it, but Moicano, I think he's legit. Like the thing with him that I think people don't like understand is that his losses have all been to like the elite fighters in his division, and he's just kind of like he gets kind of like screwed sometimes because even like the RDA fight that was like on very short notice, and Aldo at the time was still Aldo, and Fiziev, we know where he's at. It's just I don't know. I think he's a good fighter, but I did actually have a fight in mind. But before I say, I don't know if you had anything really to like say about this fight.
Oh, no, yeah, not really. I mean, like you said, like I like Moicano a lot coming in, anyways. Like, cause to me, all Brad Riddell really like, I'll say at least for this fight, all Brad Riddell really had was his power, and so if he couldn't land that shot or just like any combination, any like significant combinations or anything like that, like it was gonna be a pretty handily victory for Renato Moicano, and so that's what it was, and yeah, like you said, just a bad night for City Kickboxing overall, but
yeah, I think one fight that I would like to see just because of like it's in my mind because of last week, but him versus Grant Dawson would be a fun one to make because Grant Dawson is going to try and wrestle him and Moicano is going to try his best to fucking submit him. So I'd be very curious to see who wins in that fight because that's like a wrestling versus jiu-jitsu type matchup.
Yeah.
And I think Grant Dawson has like Kraus in his corner
I think that's definitely fair to do. Like you can certainly like give Moicano established names and all that, all while still like trying to build him up to get to the top.
Yeah, well Dawson I think is number 15. That's why I think it's perfect. Like get him right into the rankings. Yeah, he's number 15.
Yeah.
So I would like to see that personally because I think it's a fun style matchup. I think it'd be fun on like a fight night because these fight nights could use some fun fights. Like it's been a rough going with some of these lately as we've talked about ad nauseum.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean I think that Moicano, like you said, he should have won that fight. Only thing that you had to be wary of was those heavy hands from Riddell, and seemed like he was. But speaking of heavy hands, dude, Ryan Spann just starched Dominic Reyes. Like, I don't know what I was expecting really coming in. Like, I thought Ryan Spann was like the better all-around guy, but
honestly, yeah, exactly. Like that, and I just thought Dom Reyes, I didn't think he would get slept like that. I thought, at worst, like a TKO finish. I didn't think that was going to happen.
It was a jab, too. He slept him with a jab. That's how much power you got to have to just hit someone that, quickly and sleep them.
And if that's not, just evident of, how, far Dominic Reyes' chin has fallen, man, I don't know what is, because that was bad.
Yeah, it was a pretty bad one. And it's a testament to Ryan Spann putting in a full training camp. Did you hear what he said after the fight? Because you weren't by where we were watching yet by the time that this fight happened, but he said after, I think it was to Joe Rogan, that this was his first full camp for a fight. He said he always did 3-week camps, and this was the first time he really went all in. And I'm like, let's keep doing that. Let's keep doing that, man, because if this is how good he looks on a full camp, man, let's keep going. Let's not do these 3-week things anymore, man. Let's have a legit one and let's keep rising, because Ryan Spann is one of those guys, and I've said it before, he's so well-rounded and he hits so hard that he has the potential to be really good in this division. And I thought that, I remember we talked about his fight with Anthony Smith at the time, and I thought that he was putting way too much pressure on himself by saying that he has to do this for his family and he has to win to get the money. Cause you gotta just, you can't have that in your mind. There's just so much that goes into fighting and the mental aspect of it, going into a fist fight with another human being. And I just think that you gotta dumb it down a little bit. And, having a full camp probably helped his confidence a lot, I would imagine. And, I kind of thought, I didn't think that Dom Reyes was going to look this bad, dude. It kind of sucks. I came in, I was making jokes too. I was
Chin's
saying,
just
like,
gone. Like, it's just not there.
it shouldn't be that way either because it's been so long since he's fought. Like, when did he fight? I want to see when he fought. What's his name? Yuri, because that was like a while ago at this point. I think he fought Yuri in May of 2021, and then before that was 2020 versus Jan. So like he's not fighting often, and he's still getting like brutally knocked out. And I was like making jokes too, like, why has Dom Reyes been out for so long? Well, I'm an athlete, dude. I've been in the gym getting better. It's like I always remember that from the John Jones fight. Like, yeah, he hasn't faced an athlete like me. And John Jones was like, dude, I fought Olympians. Like, I think I have. But I'm just messing around because it sucks to see. Because Dom Reyes is a good fighter, man. I don't know what's happening. Like, I don't know if it's like a mental thing or if it is just his chin. Like, I don't know. He's going to have to go back to the drawing board. I don't think that he gets cut, even though he's had 3 bad losses. I think there's still room for him to improve and find his way back to the top of the division. But it's crazy just how far he's fallen after that just close brush with victory against John Jones. And I think you could argue that he even won that fight. So it's a tough one for him. But Ryan Spann is legit, and I hope he decides to train full-time. Because if he does, I think he's got championship potential. I really do. So we'll see where he goes from there. But championship potential was in boatloads in the fight before it with Erin Blanchfield versus Molly McCann. Mm-hmm. We've been talking for months about how Molly McCann's hype train was going to be stopped by Erin, and we got proven right so fast. Erin didn't waste any time. She took her down pretty easily and got her in that crucifix early and was just beating her up. At one point, I gotta pull up the stats for this fight. While I do that, though, just tell me like what you thought. Like, this fight was just a true coming out party, I think, for Erin Blanchfield, was it not?
Yeah, dude, she's a problem for any she's just as good as grappler as anybody. Like in women's MMA period right now. Like it's really like it's fun to watch, and this was easily her biggest win yet, obviously, and. From there, like, I'm just curious as to, like, how, like, the UFC brass, like, views, like, her, period now and what they want to do with her going forward. I would hope, like, now, like, they realize, like, all right, like, we've got, like, there's, like, clearly a lot of potential here. So, like, I just wonder how, what they want to, like, what I want to do with her, whether it's, like, fast-tracking her or you want to keep building her and just, like...
I think they're going to build her. Because she's smart too. Like Chael Sonnen always says this: you win a fight, if you're lucky, you fight 2 to 3 times a year, and that's your chance to get on the microphone. You have to do something with it, even if you're not talking shit. Just say a name or direction somewhere where you want to go. Like the people who say like, Mick and Sean Shelby, they're good at their job, they'll pick good. Like, you're never going to get a title fight by doing that. Like, and you have to be more specific. And Erin Blanchfield knows that. She's smart. And she called out Andrea Lee. I think that's a fight that is very good for her, personally. I think that, if anything, on the feet, it would be a little bit tougher. But I think if anything was going to prove that, it would be Molly McCann. Because Molly McCann has much more power than Andrea Lee. But Andrea Lee is more of like a straight up kickboxer, like Muay Thai type fighter. She kind of reminds me of like how Miranda Maverick fights, but she's a lot better on the ground. But the ground game is a wash for Andrea Lee against Erin Blanchfield, because I agree with you. I think Blanchfield is arguably the best ground fighter in that division right now. Like, I think it's pretty close. I think she said that if she fought Valentina today, she'd beat her. I don't know about that yet. I think that we're getting there because her ground game is that good, but
yeah, dude, and to have that confidence with it too, like
at 23 years old.
Yeah, it's pretty scary, man.
She's legit, man. I think that she's the truth, and she's gonna be a title contender, if not champion, very, very soon. And I think that now a lot of people are on the bandwagon, hopefully, because this girl is legit.
Now they are. Now they are.
Yeah, I'd like to see her versus Andrea Lee. Angela Lee is in one. I'm getting her confused. Because, you know why? Because she's been having, like, some talk with Danielle Kelly, who's also Silver Fox. So that's why it kind of, like, confused me a little bit. But, yeah, no, Erin Blanchfield called out Andrea Lee. And I think that's a good matchup for her because I think she's just going to submit her, to be honest. Or just beat her up. But Andre Petroski is another guy who is insane on the ground, and he proved it again versus Wellington Turman. And we were talking about this. He's from Brazil. Now tell me, like, I want you guys to tell me, like, Wellington Turman, when you guys hear that name, if you don't know who he is, would you think that he is from Brazil? What about you?
I mean, I guess the name Wellington.
Does that not strike you as a non-Brazilian, like, typically?
No, I don't really know what origin it is, but I know it does lean more towards, like, Latin culture.
Does
Spanish, yeah.
Turman too? I just feel
Turman,
like,
I don't know. I've never heard that name. So.
Like, when I think of, like, the Brazilian fighters, like, I think of, like, there's a mad amount of Silvas, that's for sure. There's obviously, like, there's Jose Aldo, there's Charles Oliveira. Like, they all sound like that. Like, they sound like from the same area, and then there's, like, Wellington Turman. I didn't know Wellington's a Spanish name.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. The more you know, I guess. But Wellington did not have a good performance against Andre Petroski, dude. And I think the Tough 29 alum are starting to, like, kind of, I guess, make their wave in the UFC.
Yeah.
Because Petroski's doing really well. Brian Battle has done well since he's gotten into the UFC. Tresean Gore started off pretty rough, but he got that win, obviously, like we talked about. And then at bantamweight, Brady Heastan, I think, is actually going to be fighting pretty soon. He was the runner-up at 135. Ricky Tercios hasn't been doing too good so far. I can't really sugarcoat that. But Tough 29, man, like, they're doing really good. And I'm just kind of curious, like, what you think of, like, Andre Petroski. Did you get a chance to watch that fight or no?
I caught like the recap and whatnot of it. So, like, I'm aware of how the fight went for the most part and whatnot. Petroski, like, even like that first round too. Like, I mean, I guess I don't know how much that first round like could really tell you, but from there it was all him pretty much. It was on, the fight was more on the feet too, if I'm not mistaken, rather than
And even when it was on the ground, like, Petroski was just beaten. Like, it was a dominant win, like, from every stretch. Like, that's how I felt about it. Like, he's legit. I wasn't a huge fan of him coming out, but because I thought his cardio was kind of shitty, but
I think that's a pretty like in terms of, like, all the tough the Tough 29 fighters that have fought so far and whatnot, that had to have been the most impressive out of all of them yet, honestly.
I would agree. I think Petroski's definitely put up an insane UFC run so far. Brian Battle's been doing pretty well too, and I think that's the only one you could really argue, and he's obviously the actual Ultimate Fighter, so that's kind of cool. But hey, maybe I don't know. I don't even remember. Did they fight on the show? Because I'd be kind of curious, because I wouldn't mind seeing that fight in the future, like having those guys fight, Petroski versus Battle. But they might have, to be honest, and I don't really know. Oh, yeah, no, they did. Okay. Oh, yeah, I actually do remember that. Brian Battle choked him out on in, like, I think it was, like, the semifinals or some shit like that. Because he got him ninja choke. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch that. Because I kind of remember it, but not, like, vividly, to be honest with everybody. But that's interesting. I think both those guys have, like, legit championship, like, futures, like, if they really are, like, putting their work in, especially Petroski, because anybody with that level of wrestling is, like, elite. And then Brian Battle's just kind of good everywhere. But moving on, I guess, to, for me, like, what the final fight I wanted to talk about, the first fight that just fucked up my whole night of betting with the UFC. I had a horrible weekend with it. And even, like, the one fight I got right with Poirier, I needed him to win by TKO or decision. He fucking submits him. I'm like, I can't catch
that's
a break.
fucking hilarious.
And then, this fight I'm, like, sure about. Ottman Azaitar versus Matt Frevola. And then Matt Frevola knocks him out in the first round.
The steamroller.
Yeah, man, the steamroller.
Big fan of this guy, man. He's pretty interactive on Twitter. He had a poll before the fight. I don't even think it was like, how do you think I'm gonna win this, or how you think I'm gonna fight this fight. It was more like, how should I fight this fight? And then he had a poll. It was like, I think it was like, I will grapple, and then the other one was, I will bang. And then after the fight, he quote tweets and he goes like, obviously I will bang. Yeah, obviously I will bang one. And so he's like, I'm a man of the people.
Good for him, man. I like that. I like Matt Frevola too because he's a fellow redhead. He's got a nice beard going for him too. I respect it. But anybody who comes from that like Sarah Longo like camp, I'm a fan of. The only reason why I was rooting against him is because there was some money on the line. But then Ottman, I don't even think it was really like. I just thought it was a bad performance by Ottman more than like a good like.
Yeah, that would make
did
sense.
What he had to do.
Yeah.
But Ottman was just coming forward with his chin up, like thinking that Frevola like wasn't gonna put his lights out like, right off the bat. Like he was coming forward like that, just so recklessly, and I was like, oh god, I was like, this is nuts.
Yeah, and then he tries to get Frevola up against Cage, and then that's when he just got slapped. Yeah.
I just was like, oh, I guess I don't have to really worry about it the rest of the night then, because that fucked it up right from the beginning. So it's just like doesn't really matter. One thing I thought about with Ottman Azaitar was do you remember that weird thing that happened to him when he was in Abu Dhabi and like they tried to sneak someone with a bag in his room and he got cut and then they brought him back. It was so bizarre. Like I do remember that. Shit.
Yeah.
They like apparently someone literally like scaled like a couple balconies in like the W hotel.
Yeah, was that I'm pretty sure that was the
Habib's. It might have been the first one.
I thought I was thinking more Habib's last fight against Gaethje.
Let me look on like his because on Tapology.
I remember that.
It was so weird. Like I remember, and like and they never like told everybody like what he was trying to bring into the room. It was so bizarre. I'll never.
Fight Island was pretty dope.
Yeah, Fight Island was a time. I mean, we're still going there, but it's like.
Yeah, well now it's like obviously that was like everyone's like still locked down and stuff. And
what a weird thing. I can't even really find much about it. I think it was, I don't know. I don't even want to like try and speculate. It was just a bizarre thing.
Yeah.
I really wanted to bring it up.
Yeah. What the hell?
How about this? You guys comment below when Ottman got caught with the bag smuggled in his room. What were they bringing him? So I want to hear your guys' thoughts on that one, and I'll probably honestly post this on Instagram too because I'm just genuinely curious. Maybe you could put like a poll or something on Twitter. Maybe he was like he had Paulo Costa's secret juice or something. But anyway, that's about it for UFC 281. I thought this was one of the best cards of the year. I don't know about you, but it lived up to
easily.
Yeah, man. From start to finish, the prelims all the way to the main event, I enjoyed it. And then next week, we got Derek Lewis versus Sergey Spivak in the main event. And that's a tough one. I mean, I'm kind of like torn on how it's really going to go. And I think, let's see what else is on this card because I'm kind of curious. I don't want to, we're not going to shit on it because the main event is pretty good. I don't hate it. There's definitely been worse lately.
Pretty good.
We're getting there, dude. God, there's like too many things here. Where are you? I'm just going to look it up on Google. I'm starting to get mad. UFC Vegas 65. So Lewis versus Spivak is the main event, as we just said. And then, here we go. This is what I'm looking for. The rest of the card's all right. Ooh, okay. I like this one. I like the Jack Della Maddalena versus Danny Roberts. That's a fun fight. I think that Jack Della Maddalena is like a legit force at welterweight. We've talked about him a lot of times on this podcast. Oh shit, Ricky Tercios is fighting. Look at that. We were just talking about him. This is actually not that bad of a card. I like it from beginning to end. Like as Brady he's coming back for the first time since he lost to Ricky Tercios in the finale in a war. Vanessa Demopoulos, she appeared on our spelling bee. She's the one who hopped into Joe Rogan's arms. Obviously we got Ricky Tercios, Vince Morales versus Miles John's a good fight. Jennifer Maia, already talked about that. Andre Fiallo's back versus Muslim Salikov. Damn, didn't Waldo Cortez Acosta just fight?
Yeah,
he's fighting Chase Sherman. So hey, that's kind of crazy. Cody Brundage versus Adolfo Vieira, and then the co-main is Kennedy. I don't know how to say his name, but it's like, do you know who I'm talking about? He's like
Kennedy and Chekwu.
That's it right there. Versus Ion Putelava. I think that's gonna be a really fun fight. And then obviously the main event, like we talked about. So we're gonna be back next week talking about it. That's gonna be real fun. Also that day, Shane's fight, November 19th. I think we congratulated Shane for his win in kickboxing because dude, coming on like 4 days notice to get that win. That was pretty impressive. But now he's got a fight, obviously, with a full camp. Maybe we'll be able to do some content with him. Not really too sure. It's getting kind of close, honestly. But, yeah, good luck to him. So I think we'll end it with that. We'll talk about, hopefully, his win next week, and then we'll talk about the UFC card and any other MMA or boxing. I feel like there's a Bellator card coming up. I want to be... because I want to say like there is like a legit one. Oh my God, yeah, there is Bellator 288. That's actually a lot bigger than the UFC card if you ask me. Just because we got Nemkov versus Anderson too, and we have not Patricio but Patricky Pitbull versus what's his name, Usman Nurmagomedov at lightweight.
Ooh.
That's going to be a really, really good fight, and I can't wait for it. And then, yeah, I mean, there's just so many good ones from there. I mean, Tyrell Fortune, I've heard of him. He's a pretty good fighter. But the co-main and the main event are going to be the ones that everybody's got their eyes on. I can't wait for the Nemkov-Corey Anderson rematch. I think Corey's going to get it done because he was getting it done in the first fight before the weird stoppage.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, man. I think he'll be able to. But I can't wait to talk about all this next week, and we will see you guys then.